ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start our training. As you had seen in the post, this training was starting at 10 and it shall run until 11:30. For those who would want to receive certificates of participation, you are strongly advised to register on the Zoom link so that your certificates will be processed and you can have them next week. For those who are joining us on Facebook Live, we are excited to have you here too. And you will be able to enjoy from these two ladies who have cut their teeth for about 10 years, providing counseling services in very challenging environments. Some housekeeping rules. One is that on housekeeping, if you want to ask any question, you may be having your question now, or you could come up with a question in the course of the training. Please post it on the Q&A in the Zoom link. It's just right there in front of you. We'll be taking your questions at around 11:15. The other housekeeping as well is that if you want to chat or you want to discuss anything, you can post it on the chat so that we can be able to pick it up and be able to engage with what you're thinking or what is concerning you regarding this subject today. It's my pleasure to introduce the two panelists with me here. I'm glad, Rosemary, finally we can see you all the way from Mombasa. Rosemary,
thank you. Yes.
Sarah Omole is a retired teacher and is therefore one of the best people to engage in this forum because she has taught for very many years, understands the challenges on the ground. She is a founder and a counselor, founder of Africa to Live, a counseling firm, and a counselor operating in Mombasa. We also have with us here Grace Mwangi, as I had introduced her to you earlier. Grace is the college counselor with the KMTC. I would now want to give a minute to Rosemary to greet the listeners.
Good morning, listeners. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Ms. Rosemary. And I'd like also to give 1 minute to Grace to say hello to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. Good morning. It's good to have you all today.
Thank you very much. And now I just want to go straight into the hot topic. Our listeners, 81% of Kenya's population is anxious and stressed. I know we tend to hear every day people saying, I'm stressed. Some point you wonder whether stress is synonymous with worry, that when something is not going right, you say that I am stressed. Grace, would you help us to understand what stress is and what the stress triggers are?
Thank you very much, Betty. When you talk about stress, you're talking about one going through an experience that pushes them beyond what they can handle. They may be usual daily things that happen every day, but immediately you realize that you cannot handle the experience or the event, and all your resources that you use to deal with that event or experience are exhausted, then you're likely to go into stress. So stress is, it's a bit of a delicate balance. There's something happening and you don't have the resources to cope, so you get overwhelmed and we describe you as being stressed.
Beautiful. So what are these resources you're talking about? Is it money? Is it more than money?
When I talk about resources, I'm looking at your own, you as an individual, you and the environment that is around you, the supportive environment that is around you, the physical resources that you may have. When I talk about your personal resources, your own personality, how are you able to handle trouble? You realize one event may mean different things to different persons. One person experiences, let's say, a traffic jam, and somebody gets very worked up and they're hooting and they want to knock everybody. but the other person is just calm in the car. They have enough personal resources to cope. Maybe they're able to talk to themselves and tell them, oh, this is just a little while and we're going to be out of here. So that is the individual resources. The other kind of resources we'd look at is the people around you. And when I talk of especially social support, I'm looking at a family that is around you. In case you're in trouble, who would you call? Is it friends? Is it family? And then I'm also looking at the wider community. What can be found in the wider community that would help you to cope? For my case, I look at beyond me, beyond my family, I probably have the people I go to church with, and those would form my support system. Financial or material resources would be important in coping with this stress, as well as other social capital that may be around us.
Thank you so much, Grace, because you brought a very salient point in there. You know, yesterday I had my day planned out and I just had a blackout and I was supposed to have a virtual meeting and I just felt out of balance. I was disorganized and it might look like something small, but my day was thrown out of balance and I just felt stressed with that situation. And so I do understand when you say that stress is a trigger when you seem to have a balance that is not in place. And I connect to that completely. When you're connecting with Wi-Fi here, I know Rosemary is feeling stressed this morning because she's been trying to be up there as a panelist. Madam Rosemary, do you want to add anything there and also point to the stressors that we are experiencing during this COVID-19 period?
Thank you, Betty. Yes, that was stress right now for me. Talk about it coming to you first before you talk to the audience. So true, the stressors are quite aplenty now. If you look at many of us, we have gone through, first of all, what we call acute stress. And when you're talking about acute stress, it just came suddenly. We were told, you know, if the teachers were told, wrap up, go home. And we were not prepared for that. But now it's been a while and it's building up to what we're calling chronic stress because it's been a while. So we are looking at issues that are coming up now. For instance, where's the money? If they're government teachers, they probably will have their pay with them. But you talk about the teachers in private school, you'll realize some of them don't even have pay. Some of us who are in private school had to take a major pay cut. And that was stress. Even for me as a counselor, that was stress I had to try and relate with. So we have other kinds of stress. Our culture as Africans, we have this collectivism. And so you find that now we can't bury our own. We cannot go home, you know, up country. We are not able to hug or greet. They may look like small things, but they mean a lot to us. That I'm at home, but I cannot go right up country to see mom or dad or whoever is back there. That I'm here and whiling the time away will cause me stress. Now, stress also comes out of doing nothing. It's called hypo-stress. Because when you're doing nothing and your time is just there looking at you, you're not able to, you know, you get even more tired. And that causes you stress. So we have all manner of stress that is current and it's playing out in different ways. And you find people are reacting as a result of that kind of stress around them. Betty.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. And before we started this session, we did a poll to find out where we all are at as we engage in this training. Daisy, I don't know whether you have the poll results on how we are feeling this morning.
Hi, Betty, allow me to just launch the poll for 1 minute and invite the respondents to just give their responses. I can see some of them are coming through. Thank you. So the question is, for those who are on Facebook, how are you feeling right now? There's calm, excited, anxious, worried, or traumatized. So the question is, how are you feeling right now? So we've got 30 seconds. So please just click on the, for those who are on Zoom, click on the link that, the options that show on your screen. It's all active and we'll be able to get in your responses. So another 10 seconds and we'll be able to share the results with the panelists so that then we know how far we are today. Okay, thank you so much for those who are also posting down there. Yes, the poll is anonymous. So Evans, don't worry, we cannot see who has posted. We'll just see the results, so we won't know who has posted on the polls. So allow me to end the poll and share the results. So we have an interesting audience. Betty, I don't know if you want to speak to it. Let me just, sorry?
If you can leave it on the screen, I think that would be beautiful.
Okay.
Yes, 39% of the audience are feeling calm. 7% are excited. 33% are anxious. Panelists, 16% are worried, and 4% are traumatized. And that completely agrees with what I shared at the beginning, that 81% of the population is stressed and anxious. And if you look at those, if you tie up the anxious and the worried, and those who are having their own feelings, you can see that, you know, we have pockets in there of people who are dealing with issues. And they're here today saying, how do I navigate through this? Thank you so much for giving us that response. I want to just pause a bit with what Rosemary said. Rosemary, you shared something very powerful, that the social coping mechanism seems to have been broken. Do you want to elaborate on that? Is that what is causing this spike? Do you want to elaborate on that? That we were not aware it was a stress management mechanism, but now it's more visible and clear to us because it's been removed.
Yes, Betty. I would say this. If you looked at the very research you're saying was shown to us via Media House, telling us that, let's say, 400 teachers went to seek for some help, psychological help. And the sentence they ended it with was that these teachers are actually paid. So what many people are pegging our stress on is pay. But it's not about pay. It's about many other things. And that's why I'm talking about the social fabric. The fact that I'm not able to be in touch with people that are my support system. You can imagine a husband who works in Nairobi, the wife is in Nyeri, the wife is in perhaps Eldoret, and you've been out of touch for the longest time possible. Yes, there's the phone, but that doesn't do everything. And you also have plans. You had started your projects. And so you're just waiting for people to tell you how things are going. You want to know what's happening around you. We are people who meal together, you know. We are not in church. We are not at a place where we can go to weddings together. Those are things that matter to us as Africans. And so you find that they are affecting us. And the sooner we start realizing that and knowing how then can we address this, the better we are going to feel. And even if money was given to us and yet that is missing, there would still be major stress.
Wow, thank you so much, Rosemary, for bringing out those things that we take for granted. And yet now, they're the things that really keep us, maintain us in a good state. And that when these are withdrawn, we're feeling vulnerable. We are feeling exposed. You are feeling lonely. You're feeling worried, because for the audience we are talking to today, there was hope that schools would open in September. And now, with the peak, you know, being projected to happen in September, we're now looking at schools opening in 2021, January, possibly. And so that really uncertainty, you know, the cessation of movements, you know, the loneliness, this is all causing a lot of stress, you know, operating in a very stressful environment. Now, I want to go back to Grace. Grace, is there good stress and bad stress? Because I started by saying every day we are stressed. When should we pay attention to this stress and say, this stress now, I need to deal with this one? And how does it progress? When does it now move from where it is really mild to now when it actually becomes an issue that you need to get attention?
Thank you, Betty. Is there good stress? Is there bad stress? Yes, both good and bad stress exist. Good stress is that stress that gives you a push to do something that you ought to be doing. For example, I know I need to come to work every day. There are expectations, and I'm a little concerned about, am I able to meet those expectations? That little stress I experience, that gives me a push even to pursue my goals, to meet my targets every day. That is good stress. Stress becomes bad when it pushes you beyond what you can handle. Stress becomes bad when you know, okay, I know what does it mean for me to come to work. I need to come, I need to sit here, I need to see my clients. But when I realize that I have to see a whole load of 61 clients like I have to do now, then I'm wondering, how can I ever deal with that? I am able to handle the 1, 2, 3 students every day, but am I able to handle the 61 clients that come from out of the country? Now that's when I start to begin to feel, no, I don't have what it takes to deal with this. And I might try, but at one point, my coping mechanisms may break down. And that gives me, that compromises the quality of my life, that compromises my health, that gives me symptoms that are not healthy, and that becomes bad stress, which is likely to put me at risk of many things. So good stress keeps you going. If we didn't have a little stress, we wouldn't wake up. If we didn't have responsibilities that make us feel, hey, I have to do this, or else things will go very wrong, then we wouldn't achieve anything. So good stress keeps us at achieving what we need to achieve and doing what we ought to do. Bad stress pushes us beyond our limits.
Thank you so much. And listeners, I think we are here to learn how to cope with the bad stress, because the good stress, as Grace puts it, is what drives us. It's what enables us to grow, to succeed. And that brings me then to the question of depression. When does stress move to depression? And how do you tell the difference between somebody who is depressed and somebody who is stressed? I would like both panelists to respond to this question, and I'll start first with Rosemary. Depression, stress. When does it move to depression? What is the difference? How can I tell that this person is stressed, that this person is depressed?
All right, thank you, Betty. When one is stressed, it could be just a momentary stress. So you're able to deal with it and look at it and say, it is now my past. When stress accumulates and it's not handled in any way, like I'd said earlier, it becomes chronic. It keeps going on and nothing is being done about it. You are not talking about it. You are not able to articulate what exactly is happening around you. Then it slowly leads to depression. And how will one know that now you're stressed and now you're depressed? You know, with stress, you might manage to do a lot of other things around you. The strength may not be the same, but you may have the spirit to move around and do other things with this thing lingering over your mind. But with depression, it gets to a point where there is total fatigue. You do not want to do a thing. You lose your appetite. You have no sleep. You want to sit in this dark place and stay there and perhaps not even wake up. And you feel like you're in this hole that no one can retrieve you from. So there's every part of you is sort of shutting down. It gets to a point where too much has happened to you and you feel like, I just can't take it anymore. So you give in and actually literally clamp up unless now help is sought. Someone realizes and decides to bring you out of that place that you are in.
That is so powerful and clear that it is possible to distinguish somebody going through stress and somebody going through depression. One is basically grounded. They are unable to continue with their lives. And the other is able to, but they are carrying with them. This thing is on their minds. And so maybe they are not achieving optimum productivity. Somebody might be teaching, but is not able to give it their best because there is this thing that is nagging in their minds. Grace, do you want to jump in there and add something?
Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. You put it so well. With stress, you're going through the normal hassles of life, you're trying and you're managing, and with a little support, you will pull through. But if it's pushed beyond what you can handle with the support or with your own coping mechanisms, then it might go to what we call the clinical form of a disease, which is called depression. And by the time one is having depression, that person is already sick. The stressed person is not sick. The stressed person is just dealing with life. The depressed person is actually sick. And they have an illness that affects their emotions. They have an illness that affects their mind. They have an illness that affects their body. So we'll expect that they'll have physical symptoms and they'll have psychological symptoms and they'll have symptoms in the domain of mood. So a depressed person is basically not functioning. They're not able to function normally in their society. They're not able to go through the activities of daily living as a stressed person would normally do that. And when you talk about depression, we're looking at a person who has a mood problem. That is the biggest symptom we see in depression will be the mood. One is in a low mood or depressed mood most of the time, most of the day, most of the week. This person just has no energy to do anything. Whatever they used to love doing, they cannot do anymore. This teacher who has been very happy teaching, excited at teaching students, and eventually they are grounded and that work is boring, not interesting, and they just won't do it. A simple thing like waking up becomes a major, major problem. You know, waking up, you take it for granted. Like you just got out of bed. A depressed person does not just get out of bed. So this person, like my colleague Rosemary said, is basically grounded. They are in a low mode. They have lost interest in anything. They'll be crying so many times. So this person can't just function socially, occupationally, and in all ways of life. That is depression.
Thank you so much for that clarity. And now, panelists, I want to just bring to your attention a recent article in the Sunday Standard of 28th of June. From the definitions you've given, we have Rose Shimoli in Kakamega. She lost her daughter, who is a Form 1 student, because she reprimanded her. According to the article, the parent reprimanded her because she was getting involved with boys, and this child committed suicide. In the same article, also, we have a Form 3 student from St. Kizito Lusumo in Navokolo, who jumped to her death in River Lusulu after her parents rebuked her for bringing shame to the family. I know you don't have a prior history of these two girls, and I would not want to discuss them from the situations they went through. I just want to look at this because this is a risk, or this is something that parents face. From the definition that you have given, that depression is visible, stress you can manage. How would you define these two scenarios?
Thank you, Betty. A child jumps to her death, another commits suicide because they have been reprimanded by the parents. Just like you say, a prior history would be important. But this is a child who does not have the skills to deal with that event of the parent has reprimanded her or reprimanded him for something they did. So that psychological and emotional ability to deal with that event. And it could have been, maybe there are previous exposures and this was just it, that, you know, the one we call the straw that breaks the camel's back. There may have been previous exposures. And you'd want to look at what is the relationship between this parent and this child. A parent really should be a support system, but does this child consider this parent to be a support system, or it's a parent who does not understand. I'm not trying to say that the parent was wrong, but there's so many underlying factors that you'd want to look at. Communication gone wrong, parenting gone wrong, and a child who cannot simply cope with the situation. So yes, like you said, a prior history would be important. How has the relationship been? How has communication been? What is the mental and emotional status of this child? Plus, this child is not spared the stresses that Rosemary has just described so vividly. A child who is supposed to go to school, there's no school anymore. A child who finds probably a lot of supporting teachers. When she goes to school, the teachers are not there anymore. A child who is going through many other pressures, like they have to do their online classes, they have to attend class, and probably they cannot. So it could be a combination of so many factors. And remember, the parent too is going through their own stress. Probably they have not been able to manage it, and so they cannot compose themselves to support this child in growing up. This is a growing up child. Girls relating with boys, that is normal. But how come the parent cannot handle this? So it's two-way. The parent has baggage to deal with, the child has baggage to deal with, and with the broken support system Rosemary described for us, we may feel like we've been pushed to the edge. And a child who is not coping may just decide, well, I better end things.
Thank you for that valuable input. So what you're saying, Grace, is that because the parent can also be going through stress, this child might be going through stress, and if we were to look very keenly, we might be able to see what's going on in the life of this child. But because you're also caught up, and also everybody's now trying to earn a living, parents can go through situations where they are not able to detect what the children are going through. And therefore, what a child would have managed, what you're calling coping mechanism, that coping mechanism is broken. So even a simple reprimand can easily lead to something very serious. Is that what you're saying, Grace?
Exactly, exactly. A simple thing, but becomes big because there is no cushion, that support mechanism. That parent would have maybe sat the child down in a loving way. The parent has stuff to deal with, survival for everyone. And so a small thing just becomes a mountain and the child ends their life, just like that.
I think that's a very big call on us as parents, or as people who have access to people who are staying with us, or the students we teach, because this stress or depression might be hidden. And therefore, we just wake up one day and see that somebody has done something which is so drastic. And we're all asking ourselves, why? And people are saying this person used to be happy. You know, this person would come to work very early and do his work. And you're wondering, and that question never gets to be answered because people can't see, they can't connect what happened. He was a good husband. And so that is a really very valuable sharing on especially the issue of depression and stress. Let me ask you, Rosemary, so how do you deal with depression, especially if the person doesn't want help? Because you're saying this person has shut down. You know, they've shut down their systems. You know, they can't see beyond. How do you deal with depression? Because that's also a question that the panelists, the listeners are asking. I'm seeing that question flying through my screen. How do I deal with depression?
Thank you, Betty. The great thing about our bodies and the way we were wired is that there'll always be something that will nudge you that there's something not right. Eventually something comes out. That I don't want light. You know, when people are depressed, you actually feel they are averse to light. They want this darkness. And eventually there might be, when there's any light that comes through, could be somebody walks into the house and insists on opening the curtains. There might be that, you mean there's life, there's something else going on. What is making me not want to step out? I believe that if that person has realized, because one thing we never do even as counselors, we may not be able to force someone to come out and say that they need help. We may guide them. We may tell them there's something happening and you need to be helped. But if this person is locked up in a place and there's somebody aware that there's someone in that place, it then becomes our duty to keep calling out and lend the support to bring out these people. I'm saying this because you can even find it happening in a staff room. You can notice that somebody is no longer themselves. They are not giving their all. They are constantly late to work. They don't seem to be in touch with their students. If they go for staff meetings, they look so far. They are walking around with it. And they would rather be alone even in some room, whether it's in a lab or somewhere and hide. And it's up to this colleagues to say, let me reach out to this person. And the more you insist, finally there's going to be a ray of hope where someone will say, I do need help. Before that, you'll find that a lot of depressed people decide, let me take that route where I can finally find my solace, and they go away. And that's when people say, we noticed that they were depressed. Then that's why we need one another. That's why we need the teachers to be sorted out. Are they okay? Before they can reach these students. So depression is something that may not even be known to me when I'm going through it. I think it's a normal thing. But if I take time and realize I've not taken a shower for 3 days, I can't even remember the last time I ate. I'm not sleeping throughout. The morning has come and I'm here. It might click in me that I need to speak to someone about it. And eventually you get people say, I didn't sleep the whole night. That's when the conversation starts. And from there, we take it to the next step. This person may not help themselves. They will need to see a counselor for them to walk the whole home. They will need to seek for help. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. So what you're saying is that we need to mind it. It's our business, the people around us. We need to observe. This is a difficult time for everybody. You can't afford to just mind your own stuff. You need to listen to them. If they are not contacting you, you find that you've not talked to this person for a long time, because now we are not in the staff room setting, So what you're just saying is that we need to just mind beyond our own business. You're saying we need to reach out, we need to insist. We need to ask, are you okay? And chances are they'll deny that they are okay. Yes, and of course, try and get them professional help. So this is not one way you're going to try and talk to the person and talk them out of the depression. Depression is a sickness. It's an illness. It needs to be treated, to be dealt with or handled by someone who is professionally trained. What about stress? Does it need counseling as well?
Yes, Betty. If we can get to know the simple coping mechanisms, there are ways that people do know that they can work it out. But when you see that it keeps recurring, that stress doesn't seem to be going, then you need to know what is triggering this stress all the time. Why am I not able to cope with it? And that's the time you need to get someone, perhaps who will dig deeper and find out other things that you are not allowing to come out on the surface. You could just be scratching the surface, but there could be other deeper things that have been settling in your mind for God knows how long. So if it's a stress that's ongoing, you can work it out so long as you feel I'm better. When you're stressed, you'll feel the symptoms in different ways, whether it's psychologically, physically, or whether it's through your, maybe the way you react to situations. So you will know there's something still ongoing, which I can sort out. Which I cannot sort out, I need to say, look, I think things are getting out of hand. I don't seem to know how to make it work for me. Whether it's relationships, whether it's in my workplace, I need to find out how then can I sort out this problem. So stress needs to be sorted out.
Stress needs to be sorted out. Depression needs to be sorted out. Rosemary, you've handled that extremely well. Thank you so much. I can see some comments coming in there, and somebody is sharing that remember to be a good listener. Sometimes when somebody is telling you, or they want to open up. You want to talk so much. This person is saying, just listen so that you can hear where I am. You can see the pit I'm in, so that I can also trust you. Because when you listen to somebody, it builds trust that you are valuing them, so that then they can be able to share with you and you can be able to point them. Is that right, Grace? That the role really you should play here is to guide and point them to the help. And as you answer that, also consider the question that somebody is asking, and I'm seeing it flying through there, that how do I differentiate? Sometimes I'm thinking it is maybe this project I'm doing that is causing me to be sleepless, but maybe there's something bigger than that. How do I unpack that, so that whatever I'm thinking is normal is not normal? Grace?
Thank you. Thank you to this person who says that one needs to be there to listen. The person who is stressed needs to be heard. And you're listening so that you can pick out what is, for two reasons. One, it just empties the person and takes off the baggage off their chest. Listening makes it lighter. Now, on the other hand, you're listening to try and see what it is to be able to help this person to actually define the stressor. What is this thing that is stressing me? And do I have the potential? Do I have the capital to deal with it? A lot of times we have the capital, but we are not aware that we have. So when another person is listening to you and showing you, but you look like you have this and this that you can use to deal with this situation. And then you're realizing, oh, where was this all the while? So the listener helped you to see the potential you have to deal with the situation. Many times in stress, you just need someone to guide you, someone to help you look into yourself and see what you can do. And that's what counselors do. Counselors don't offer solutions. They listen and they help you to look into yourself and look around yourself and see what you have to deal with the situation. Now, the other part of, is it this sleeplessness? Is it because of this project that I have that is keeping me awake? Is it because of I'm depressed or something? Now, when you stay awake because you have a project, your mind is racing, and that is walking you towards stress. If this sleeplessness lasts more than 2 weeks, that becomes significant. If you didn't sleep all week, if you didn't sleep another whole week, and that will not come alone. When you can't sleep, so many other symptoms will come up. And the duration of those symptoms help us differentiate between a normal stressor that can be handled and a clinical depression that is developing. So there's a distinctive way of telling between stress and depression. The duration of the symptoms, the kind of the symptoms, and the dysfunction that comes with it. A stressed person is always trying. A stressed person is always trying. And when they visit that person who listens to them, they'll come out of their energy. The depressed person finds no energy in everything. So one, we have to look at the kind of symptoms this person is presenting with, the duration of these symptoms, and the impact of those symptoms on the quality of that person's life.
That's so beautiful, Grace. So you have elaborated a lot, and I think we're being told that if it persists for longer, there's a problem. I think that's what I'm hearing the panelists say. If you're feeling lonely, if your inability to sleep, your inability to eat, your inability to feel the energy to work, if this thing persists for longer, she's giving us 2 weeks, then it's time to face the reality. And I like what you're saying. The reality you need is to be able to be helped to look inside so that you can pick that problem, look at it, deal with it, so that you can be able to move forward. And I think that is really very powerful in terms that the counselors help you in being able to achieve that clarity, to be able to pinpoint exactly what it is, and to be able to help and guide you to come out of that pit that you get into. That is so beautiful. So the listeners, when they came into this session, they want to know, what are the strategies and the techniques for managing stress? That is the meat on the table, because we have said that stress is something that we face every day.
Yeah.
equip me so that I can be able to navigate every day. If every day I can pull down the wall of the stress I have that day, it means I can live a less stressed life, you know, the good stress. Who wants to go first? Rosemary.
All right. Betty, the moment I realize that my body is not operating the way it ought to, there's this constant headache. I'm taking Panadol, the next thing I'm taking, you know, headaches. You know, it keeps going higher. And then the next time you're complaining that I have this pain and palpitations, or my chest is paining and I've not exercised, you're complaining that I'm getting this eye strain. I don't seem to be operating very well, and I don't even use glasses. You're feeling like there's a ringing in your ears. You know, all these things that are coming out. So you need to say, hey, there's something not okay here. And if you allow me to share about myself as a counselor.
Yes, please.
I remember that when I was hit by the pay cut that was coming through, I remember that night, immediately we had learned that we would get the pay cut, and I noticed that my body just changed. I was suddenly getting this cold sweat. I was feeling like the weather had changed. Then I realized, no, there's something wrong. And when I went to bed, I was feeling cold, unusually cold. And my heart was not racing in the way it ought to. And I said, these are the symptoms I talk about. These are the things I tell my clients to watch out for. And it dawned on me that this is stress now, acute, that has come in such a strong way. And immediately I said, you know, I need to deal with it. Yes, I did take something to work on the fever, but at the same time, what I'm trying to say is that once you're aware of something, deal with it. So what are the techniques we can use? One of the best techniques is exercise. Whether it will take us 30 minutes or it will take us, you know, more than that if you're good at doing that. Hello?
Yes, Rosemary, please continue.
All right, sorry. So if you can do exercises, that will help. Another way of dealing with stress is have your talk therapy. You know, talk to yourself. Many people find that very hard to do. Have a conversation with yourself. How are you doing, Rosemary? Why are your eyes so puffed up? Why are you feeling this way? Talk to yourself and give yourself some energy to push on. Some people work good with music. Play the music. If you know how to dance it, dance it. Some people work well when they look for friends who they know are what I call your what? It's called the what board? Your, not springboard. There's your support system in terms of friends who you know will not poke at you and tell you, come on, get on with it. Because many times people will tell you, just get out of it, shake it off and move on. After all, we are all stressed. But when you have people who say, I feel you, I can hear what you're saying, you know you need to have those people who will talk with you. This season has made us find friends if you're not able to meet, because we know that COVID has brought these situations. Have a Zoom meeting with your friends and talk about the issues. Don't have a Zoom meeting because you're discussing next term's timetable only. Create a Zoom meeting and say, how are you doing? I'm feeling this way. My money is not enough. I can't sleep. I feel I have so much time yet I can't sleep. Somebody else will tell you what they're doing. So look for friends who will help you in a very healthy manner. And you know them by now. As teachers, we know who this person is, who I can always turn to. So techniques are there. Rehydrate. Water has always been seen as a best way of dealing with stress. Always have your bottle of water in front of you. It does magic in the body. Make sure that you eat well, because our food also helps us to manage certain things that will come into our bodies and upset our systems, because our immunity goes down when we are stressed. So we need to take proper food, you know, avoid so much junk, and take the vitamins and the minerals that will help us cope better. These are some of the ways that we can. And as a counselor, I always tell every other person, journal, write down what it is you're feeling on that day. Because the following day, when you read it and it's still the same pattern, it tells you something, that there's something that needs to be worked out. So there are various techniques that can be used, and people choose what they feel can work out for them. But bottom line, get things going.
Beautiful. Rosemary, you've covered, you have to have the conversation with yourself, get into a relaxing mode, get a support system, be open, tell your close cycle, the ones that you trust, be vulnerable. You know, this whole thing about stress, about depression, is because of the coping mechanism. The person who is not stressed or depressed doesn't mean that they are better off. It's only that their system is more capable of handling that level of stress than you can yourself. Eating well, rehydrating, and journaling. Grace, what do you want to add to that?
Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Rosemary. That was very awesome. And especially the part of journaling, I want to start there. I want to say that many times we are all taking selfies and posting on Facebook and posting on social media, and you're basically asking people, how do I look? So your physical look, you want to show everyone, you want to display, and that is very beautiful. Journaling and talking to somebody, I equated to doing an emotional or psychological selfie. You're opening up your inside and putting it on the table. You're looking inside through journaling, bringing out what is inside that is stressing you, or through talking to someone who is listening to you, you're bringing it out and looking at it from outside objectively. And now you're not asking the public, how do I look? You're reading your stuff, you're listening to yourself talk, and you're asking yourself, how do I look from the inside? So I consider journaling a very important thing. I consider talking to somebody a very important thing, because it opens your inside and you're able to see, are you satisfied with what you see? Then if I'm not happy with how I look physically, maybe I'll put on some makeup, I'll put on some foundation, I'll put on lipstick, I'll cut my hair to look bald like I do, just to look nice outside. But when I look at inside, I'll be able to tell what do I need to modify of my inside so that I am more healthy than I am at this point. I needed to especially talk about that, journaling and talking to somebody. Now the other thing about stress and how to manage it, I look at it in three ways. One, what is it that is stressing you? You need to identify your stressor, because you might be doing all the exercise, doing all trying to sleep, yet you have not dealt with the actual cause of the stress. So you need to look at what it is that is stressing you. Is it something you can handle? Is it something you can eliminate? If you can eliminate, then get rid of it. If it is that little car I drive and it's taking in a lot of fuel and it's taking a lot of my money, how about I do other means of transport? So try and eliminate that source of stress if it is possible. If it is a stressor that you can't eliminate, let's say, for example, what your employer does, there's nothing you can do about that. He's your employer. You can't fire your employer, okay? So there's nothing you can do about that. So the other thing you do when you cannot eliminate, then you need to reorganize and reprioritize things in your life. What is it that should be a priority now? In Kenya, I think what you're doing now is surviving, really surviving. Do I have food to eat? Do I have a roof over my head? The other thing that you needed to do, that project that has stopped, that has stalled and you can't go on, it can be put on hold until things get better. So that is reorganizing and reprioritizing. If you're used to going to visit the old folks in Ushago every month, then you know that is not allowed, that is risky, that will not work for now. So you will reorganize and reprioritize and say, when Uhuru finally opens, if he ever does, then I will come to Shards. But in the meantime, there are other things I can pay attention to. So note, number one, try and eliminate the stressor if you can. If you cannot eliminate the stressor, then look at the things that are causing you stress and try to reorganize them so that you look at what is most important now. For me, I need to have food on my table. I need to have a roof over my head. The new dress can wait. The new hairstyle can wait. In fact, I think it can explain my hairstyle now because I can't go to the salon. What should I do? Cut. And then I'll take a full shower and tell myself, you look very beautiful in that hairstyle. Kumbe, I was just reorganizing and reprioritizing. The other thing, if you can't reorganize and you can't reprioritize, that is, you cannot influence all those things that are happening around you. Probably you need to find how to cope. And Rosemary has taken us through excellent ways of coping. What are we saying? You need to take care of your mind. You need to take care of your emotions. You need to take care of your physical health. Note what you're thinking. And that's why that conversation with yourself becomes very important. Like this morning, I really had to talk to myself. I had this meeting waiting. I had 61 clients screaming, we want our results. I have these ones who have tested positive. I need to tell them you've tested positive. I was thinking, so how am I going to deal with all this? And I say, can somebody else take this? And I came here and locked my office. And that's how we are able to talk. What you cannot handle, what you can't eliminate, what you can't reorganize, you learn to live with it. So what are those things you can do to live with your stressor? Probably you need to know, I need to talk to myself and say, hey, stop freaking out. Let somebody else deal with that. It's not urgent. Now lock up that door and take no more calls. I am trying to take care of myself so that I'm not going crazy because the things that are happening must happen anyway. And the other thing you're talking about, take care of your physical health. Eat a well-balanced diet in as much as you can afford it. A well-balanced diet doesn't need to be that costly one. Those basic things that gives you the essentials that you need, because when a body is not fed well, it cannot handle stress. Try and sleep as much as you can. We say 8 hours, that's ambitious. Let me give you 6 to 7 hours so that you're not too ambitious. Sleep, try and get some sleep every day for your body and your mind to rest and energize. The other thing is, look at your support buddies. Who is around you? Kindly talk. Reach out to other people. Talk to other people. Physical exercise is very good. And remember to talk to yourself and say, hey, what you're doing now is not working for you. Stop doing that and start dealing with something else. There's something we call among counselors, the worry type. You can say, worry, I know you're there. I'm going to pack you. I'll be worrying at 2 p.m. For now, I need to prepare this lesson. So I'll prepare my lesson and pack the worry. And if I need to worry, then 2 p.m. I'll say, hey, worry, we agreed we have a date at 2 p.m. Let's pick it up. And you might realize you didn't need to worry after all. So are there some things you can pack so that you can move on with life? So yeah, in very many words, eliminate, reorganize, reprioritize, cope, or live with what you cannot eliminate or reorganize. Thank you, Betty.
Very, very helpful, Grace. Powerful nuggets in there. I love the reorganize, reprioritize, and pack some stuff, you know, because our heads like to just play some audio about this issue you're trying to work. Is still at the front of your mind. It's not even at the back of it. It's interfering with you. So I think that's really very powerful. Thank you so much. Daisy, do we have the next poll?
Yes, we do. I'll just post it up. Okay, maybe we can just take 1 minute.
So listeners, this question is asking you, how have you managed stress in the past? There is exercise, music, keeping in touch with friends, reading, praying, seeing a counselor, or none of the above. And maybe as that is going on, I just want to come back again. There are some things you've said there that I'm just wearing the shoes of this teacher. He is in Nairobi. He was employed by a school board, which means he's not on TSC payroll. Of course, with the revenue streams for the schools diminishing, now that the schools were closed and the reopening was moved forward, this teacher has found themselves without a salary. Now, it might be easier when you're up country, you're staying in your own place, but you're in Nairobi, there is a lockdown. Now, there are some things here that you have said, like listen to music. At that time, I don't think the music can enter your ears. You know, you're saying eat a balanced diet. This person is dating the landlord in the morning and coming back at night. So I want to come back to that particular question in terms of what can this person do? But before we do that, we have the poll results here with us. Listeners, we see keeping in touch with friends and praying, really taking almost 50% of intervention. We have also music, which is 27%, exercise 18%, and seeing a counselor. I think everybody is still managing their own stress. They've not gone to that level of seeing the counselor. And that people were saying none of the above. I wish, Daisy, you had put a box there for them to tell us what else they do, because there are some 6% who have said none of the above. But I think what we have working is the music, is the exercise, is the keeping in touch, it is the praying. And there's some people who say they will read to, you know, get out of that spot. So back to the question. I'm in Nairobi, I cannot go up country. I can't pay rent. I have no money. I can't even eat these things that you're saying, eat, they can help you. There's nothing to journal except pain. What do I do?
I think you need to get out of the 1% that is a counselor, and you need to see a counselor at that point.
But what do I pay with, Grace?
That's a hello?
Yeah, please continue.
Yes. That's a very difficult situation, and I think that would push any normal person beyond the limits, and that would be a real recipe for stress. But there's still some support this person can get. We say we look inside yourself, and we say we look around you. Where can help come from? I know you're not up country, and you're not able to get, you know, at least in the Shamba you can get things almost for free. But around yourself, who is your support system? What can you do so that you can get somebody helping you? You may not have the salary, you may not have the money to pay rent. Is there something you can do with the landlord? Can you negotiate so that you're saying, because I can't pay all this rent at once, can I stagger it, or can you keep it? I mean, until I'm able to open school, that will be next year. Very unrealistic. The landlord will say, I have bills to pay. But is there some negotiation that can happen so that it can be paid in small installments? Number two, who is around you? Can you enroll for some help? There are a lot of people offering help. There's a church giving help, and a lot of people are giving food hampers. There's a government that gives some little help. We saw last night when the COVID emergency committee, I don't know that's the exact name, they were saying that they're getting a lot of requests to feed people who are not able to feed themselves. Let me say this, teacher, because you don't have pay, teacher because you can't teach, that has not reduced who you are from a teacher to a beggar. But this situation calls for you to be able to say exactly what you're going through. I have no food. Where can I get this food? If you go to that church that gives food hampers, that does not make you a beggar. Remember, it is survival mode and nothing else. So don't say, how will people think what will people think when they see me lining up for the relief food? So is there help that is coming from your immediate family? Can they send something from Ushago for you to eat? I've seen a lot of families do that. And I saw last night but one that most of the vehicles are just ferrying foodstuffs from up country. Can you call for help? You may have been the one sending money up country, but it's time to be real and tell them, you know what? I can't feed myself. You're mahindi, because mahindi mekauka. Send the unga or send the mahindi, I'll take to the mtambo. Pack the veggies, the dried ones, I will eat them. Pack the beans and send them over to me until this is over. Look at your support system. That would be your friends, your family, your religious group, the government, and what is being offered around you. Stay open, listen, have your ears on the ground so that you can access any help available. I am saying this is a temporary situation. It does not define you. No need to be embarrassed to ask for help when you need help. And when you can't figure out, go to Rosemary, go to Grace, go to the other Graces in your neighborhood. They'll tell you, by the way, I heard the chief was distributing food. How about you go there for food? Big deal, I need to eat. I will go there and I will eat the food. I hope this helps.
That's really very helpful. I like the one about calling for help from up the country and asking for help from people, just being open and say, you know, that things are tight. And the church, you know, there's a place that there must be a point of connection. There must be a family, a relative, a former schoolmate. There must be somebody. You cannot be alone in the island. And what you're just saying is humble yourself. You know, it requires humility to say, this is the situation. And the good thing is that everybody really understands. These are difficult times. People understand their job cuts, their job losses. So thank you very much, Grace, for that. And Rosemary, did you want to throw anything in there?
Yes. Oh, thank you, Grace. That was marvelous. You really put it out clearly. You know, a group of helpers, you know, the teachers are actually in the helping profession. They are so equipped with many things within them. I know teachers who are good at teaching, yes, but you find they have so many skills and so many ways of making that one point here and there. After we have dealt with the stress and the shock of what is happening, I have no pay. You need to get up, dust yourself and say, look, I am a teacher, I have these skills. Even if I'll not get the amount that I need to out of the tuition, and thank God for these platforms now, you may not need to meet your students, but there's a way you can manage to communicate with them and get something done and get your 200 bob. I know last week I went through a course and I paid 200 bob over the M-Pesa. And I was able to go through a course for 1 hour. That was very, very enlightening. And so, and people are doing such things. And so teachers are going out there and doing stuff. We can't sit and say, let me wait and see. God knows how long we wait. And we need to get up and say, let me do something. At the beginning, I was like, let me deal with this first. Then you say, what else can I do with what I have in my hands? Because we all have an extra thing inside us. We can't be focused on this thing that I must do. So much as I miss the students, much as I miss my colleagues, much as I miss the environment I'm used to, I need to get up and do something and come back home and feel I have made a difference. If it didn't go well, I tried. That keeps us going.
Fantastic, that's great. Very helpful. And I like what Grace had said at the beginning. Reorganize, you know, yes, if there is no job now, what I'm hearing you saying is, what else can you do to bring something home? If there are no opportunities to teach, even in the current, the new normal, then what else could you do? And I've had people in organizations start doing business. Not very big business, but the one that will give you your 500 to 300 bob to survive that day. It's a difficult time, but it calls for creative ways of thinking, and it's really very challenging. We empathize. I think what we're looking at here is, how do you cope? Before we go to the Q&A session, I would like to just handle 2 more areas. And one is with regard with counseling in schools. It's easier for adults to say that they need counseling and to take action. We're dealing with, especially when you look at the teens, these are people who start shutting, you know, closing themselves in. They don't want to tell you how they are feeling. You ask them, how are you? They're saying they're fine. It's just very few words responses that you get whenever you ask a question. So you really can never tell this person. You try and look at them, most of the time they're in the bedroom or with their friends. So you don't have this time where you're having like a doctor-patient analysis to see, is this child of mine okay? Schools reopen. These children have been exposed to a lot of trauma. They have seen their parents, their lifestyles have been changed, or even there is actually no bread on the table. They are stressed because they don't know if they can go to school. Some of them have experienced domestic violence or sexual violence and abuse, or even pregnancy situations. What is the capability in schools to deal with counseling? How do we deal with these students when they report and we want to catch up on the curriculum? Rosemary, you've been a teacher. Could you help us by pointing us to what is happening and what we should do?
Okay, thank you, Betty. What do we do when the students come back? And the students have been exposed to so much that we don't know. The very first thing I want to say is that there's been a major improvement in schools in terms of being very, very sensitive to the issues of counseling and seeing the need of counseling in schools. We may not have reached the level that we want. We may not be there yet, but we are making strides. And so I would say that thank God that schools before they open, teachers will have to be in school before that. And that needs to be addressed with the staff before the students come in. And I think it's very important that the teachers find a way of being equipped, whether it will just be a workshop for a day or two or whatever it is that the schools can organize, so that the teachers can find time to understand how they will deal with students who will come in with these things, how they will be able to identify them right from the assembly ground to the classrooms. Even when they go for PE and they notice there's something going on, it's very important that these teachers have the ways of identifying those things that may look hidden. But more so, I would say we start with ourselves as teachers. You know, it's very important that the head teacher will call the teachers and just get to know, first of all, what have they been through? Because you cannot be there trying to heal someone else and you're so wounded yourself. So you first have to sort out the stuff. And if there could be conversations along those lines of, are we traumatized? Are we lost? Do we have fear concerning what's ahead of us? All those things. How many people buried anybody? Did you know of a relative or a friend? Where is everybody in this stuff? So then after all that has been poured out and discussed, and we have a session where if they have amongst themselves counselors who can take them through how to identify and how to deal with these situations in class, how to help these children. I can guarantee you, Betty, there will be lots of children who will come to school scarred one way or another, fear in them that they have COVID by just someone coughing in class, fear of just, I forgot to wash my hands, and those little things that will have to be dealt with and interfere with what we are saying, the learning. It's very important that the child is sorted out in terms of their safety, in terms of their well-being, before we can sort out the curriculum. And that way, everybody will be on board and everybody will be everybody's keeper. So if teachers can find a place and an avenue of bringing out the issues, know who to direct the children to, because I do believe, and even in the school I was in, there was a counseling department, and there were teachers within it. In the public school, there were teachers within it that had been assigned. They may not have been trained, but they know that they can handle these children. With knowledge given to them, they'll be able to sort out, so that they don't embarrass any child in class. They do not point out, why is this child sleeping all the time in class? Why is this child looking so restless? Why is this child not in school? If they have deviant behavior, if they're abusing drugs suddenly, if they're threatening to commit suicide, we will all have to be concerned. And that's my take about it in schools.
You've hit the nail on the head. I like what you've said. Before we start with the students, what is the state of my teachers? Because teachers, we know, influence 60% of the performance of a student. Are they ready to engage? Have they unpacked what they've handled? And then what you're just saying is that we must equip before we go into that curriculum. As we're thinking of sanitizers and hand washing and spacing, we need to ask ourselves, how will we deal with the students when they come back? Many have been out there, the parents are at work, and they've been exposed to drugs and substance abuse. How do we deal? Thank you so much, Rosemary, for those valuable gems there. Grace, did you want to add in just one thing there before we wrap up?
Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Rosemary. You put it very well. I can't emphasize on self-care. The teacher has to be healthy to be able to help the child. So spend this time between now and school opening, making yourself healthy so that you're able to listen to that child, so that you're able to observe that child. And I'm glad that Oxford is organizing this. And there's so many other forums where the teacher can equip themselves to get ready to receive the child. There's so many short courses, online counseling courses, where you can get a few skills to be able to take that child through. Then I remember, actually this came from you, you have to learn to listen. Listen, listen, listen. The teacher needs to be available to that child. They may not just come out themselves and talk, but when the child feels safe with you, they will say, you know, those things which you say, the teacher, may I tell you something? Be there and be available emotionally and physically for the child. And also have your eyes open to be able to observe children and their behavior. Some of them will come, they're withdrawn. Some of them will come to school and they're very dirty. You're wondering, how did you come to school like this? Long time ago would be really caned for coming to school dirty. But in 2020, 2021, that is a symptom that something is not going right somewhere. Pay attention to that and let that be your entry point. Is this child playing? Is this child aggressive? How are they performing in class? Are they participating? So the teacher must do three things. First, self-care in preparation to receive the child. A self-care, that means you're emotionally, psychologically, and physically okay to be able to deal with that child. Number two, have your big eyes, make them big, 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 big to see what the child's behavior, to be able to observe each and every child's behavior. Then have your ears and heart open. I'm saying ears and heart because when your heart is open, the child finds that it is safe to talk to you, and then you can have your ears open so that you can be able to pick what that child is saying. Then of course I will want to add, work with parents and work with the society and work with organizations that help children so that they can be able to go through this. We may just be looking at COVID numbers. I think that is not the trouble right now. The trouble is the mental health strain that this has put on everybody in society, and that is barely spoken about, and I'm glad we're doing this here. So apart from washing and sanitizing, and a child slept hungry, that child was beaten, that child is homeless, the father lost a job, the father died, the father was buried at night in that very traumatizing kind of burial. So there's so much to deal with. So teacher, beware. You have a lot of work to do. Get set, prepare for it, and be there for the child. And remember, that child could be an entry point to the family. That child could be an entry point to a community that is struggling with COVID-related problems. So, Mwalimu, kazi kwako.
Powerful, and thank you for passing the baton again to the listeners who are here. And I believe in a way, this training is equipping them to be able to handle the situation when they go back to school. Because of time, I would want to now move into the question and answer session. If you haven't posted your question, please put that in the Q&A. I will start with questions that we received as early as yesterday, as I wait for Daisy to summarize the themes around the questions that are being put through. We have Peter here, and Peter is asking how he can deal with anger issues. He says he's angry, he gets angry on petty issues, and this makes him to quarrel. He's one and only small daughter and the people around him. And definitely then he's a stressor in this family. And he's asking, what do I do? This is a father. Grace?
Okay. Paul, Peter, something must be making you very angry. Sorry about that. First, what is that is making you so angry? And then, are you able to identify those triggers? What is that keeps you going towards anger? And then are you able to be present with yourself to realize, now I am angry. And when I get angry, you know, the thoughts and the feelings are connected, and that influences your actions. That when I am saying being present is that be able to identify what you're going through and recognize it as anger and call it by its name. I am angry. I realize I am angry now. Then you look at, when I get angry, it gets me off being myself. a father of a little girl. This girl has expectations. This girl expects a hug, not some anger being directed at her by the father. So the father should come back and say, when I'm angry, I'm likely to hurt my daughter. I'm likely to unleash it to those who are around me. That does not make me a good father. That does not make me a good person. What, instead of being angry, can I do? So I'm talking of unhooking from that emotion and hooking onto your values. Instead of this angry father who unleashes it on a baby, what does the baby expect? What is expected of a father? To be loving. So can you disengage from that anger for a moment and park it, as I said, and say it is time to hug my little girl. It's time to be present with my little girl. It's time to play with my little girl. So you have to be very intentional. First, recognize that you're angry, name the emotion, realize what it is likely to make you do. Of course, not become a very good person, and decide, I am not going to act in that manner very intentionally. Instead, I am going to act as a loving father to my child. And I'm guessing if there's a father, there's a mother somewhere, and there are other people around you. How are you expected to act towards those people around you? So first deal with emotion and unhook from it and hook to the right thing. It's a whole long story. I wish you had time.
Beautiful. I think you're saying pack it because you've seen the consequences. I remember 2 things I was told. Breathe in, breathe out 10 times before you open your mouth. And the other thing is just move out of the scene. You know, if you're mad and you're at home, because I believe this is where you are, just walk out of the door until that's, you know, that anger subsides. Then you can be able to think through and solve. I'm not a counselor, so please, Rosemary and Grace, don't say that's not true. Yes. So we'll have to answer these questions briefly because I want to just take another 3 from Daisy. And Daisy, if you can just organize the big ticket items. I have Bonnie here from Mukuru slums, and Bonnie is saying that the mzazi has become mzaji. I know you understand that language, Rosemary, because you're in Coast. And he's saying the problem is the parent. They've left this problem to us. Over to you, Rosemary.
Mzazi amekuwa mzazi.
The parent is not taking responsibility at all. And therefore, they are the cause of this stress and problems.
I think there's a lot that's been happening. And in many ways, I've said that COVID has brought a lot of things on the surface. These things didn't just start now. Our work schedules and the fact that we want to provide for our children have often made us not be in touch with our children. As long as I can pay fees and buy them the clothes that they can put on their back, I think I'm done. And as long as I can provide that basic meal, I'm done. So who is taking care of this child? Who is bringing up this child? And I would like to say, Betty, if you've noticed that there was a hue and cry about the number of pregnancies, and nobody seems to be taking care of anybody out there. The children are growing on their own, and they don't seem to be having any direction other than from their phones and from their friends. There is need to have a very loud conversation. The parents have quite left what they ought to be doing. While as before society did it with the rest of the parents, it's different now. I can't touch your child because you'll come and take me straight to court if I even try to correct them. So everybody's trying to survive on their own. And the parents too are saying, I need to look for the bread and butter, even if it takes me 24 hours. So there is a gap that needs to be addressed. And that's true.
Grace, who will address this gap?
We are a failing society. We look like we're a failing society. I think we need to go back to the roots and decide on and agree what is the role of the parent, what is the role of the child, what is the role of the wider society. So I think we need to get our act together as a community and talk to each other, have these conversations. Because the role of a parent is not just to kukua mzaji, you know, mzaji, you drop and go, or drop and pay fees and clothes and go. That child is unparented. who is going to train up this child, who is going to socialize this child. So we need to go back to the family unit and have those conversations on the role of each member of the family, and the parent must realize that apart from just providing this training the child into becoming a member of that society, no wonder we have very weird, children who don't seem to be fitting anywhere, but they are not taught to fit anywhere because those who are supposed to teach them are not there. So back to the roots, what is the role of a parent? Who will help this parent? We need to have parenting groups, however small, parenting clubs, conversations like this with parents. Oxford, you go beyond teachers. I hope we can find another Oxford that brings parents together so that we can have this conversation and everybody plays their roles, and stop throwing everything at the teacher. The teacher too is a parent elsewhere who is taking care of his children. So I think we need to have these conversations at the community level.
Thank you so much, Grace. Quickly jumping into this question, stress coming from having to take care of a child who has schizophrenia. The child is having delusions 24/7, bad temper, pessimistic on everything. It sounds like it's bordering on the issue, the aspect of depression, as we had earlier discussed. What do you have for this health stressor?
Most definitely, this child needs to be seen by a psychiatrist, not a counselor, not any helper. This child needs to be seen by a psychiatrist so that they can have the schizophrenia attended, medically treated with drugs that will stabilize him, and so that he can function in society and, of course, calm down. Then the parent needs a lot of self-care. You need to remember yourself. Even as you're taking care of this person with schizophrenia, that must be very challenging. You need to remember yourself and keep your sanity, because if you lose your sanity, then you have two patients and then you'll have no one to take care of each other. Number two, what is the support system around you? Who can help you even as you take care of this person? Maybe he needs to be taken for his checkups or to see the psychiatrist. Who is there to help with that? Can somebody do that as you rest? Remember, one, get medical attention or psychiatric attention for this person. Then remember to take care of yourself, including asking for help from people around you. This is not something one person can handle. The whole family needs to be involved. But first, they would need to understand what is schizophrenia and what can they do to support a person living with schizophrenia, and what other people can do to support the family of a person living with schizophrenia. So talk about it, seek help, get medical attention for this child. Remember self-care, because you must remain sane under all circumstances.
Thank you so much. Daisy, if you can just give us two big ticket items. Because of time, I would want to just deal with the two big ones so that time will not become a stressor to people who have to jump onto something else.
Yes, true. So thanks a lot, Betty. So just looking at some of the questions, one of the main ones that keeps coming is about teachers who are the breadwinners at home, and they have been going through stress because they lost their jobs, and they do not have anyone to speak to, including their spouse or anyone at home. And they feel that the issue of finances is causing a stress to themselves, and they're not able to sleep. So in a nutshell, how then do we support teachers or even people around us who are breadwinners, and they feel probably ashamed or disappointed that they're not able to provide for their family anymore, and they are stressed and cannot sleep? How then can we support such teachers?
Thank you. Can you we take that particular one? Rosemary, please.
Okay, thank you, Betty. I would say this, yeah, this is really a big, it is a genuine issue, and it is big. The best way to do this is, I'm looking at it from this angle. Deep down, we do have skills, but sometimes we don't know how to look for these skills. A forum, perhaps, that can be started where we get teachers, where easily would have done some group counseling where we can share, I'm having a problem, but I don't know what to do. Because sometimes even if you have an idea of what to do, you need someone to fish it out from you and tell you, how about telling me what you're good at, then point out the direction for you. when we are in stress, we are not able to see that direction. A group forum would be good. I don't know whether the schools have a way of having these discussions through Zoom, but as counselors, we could be able to find ways of engaging teachers who are in this kind of dilemma through Zoom, through various ways that we can get to talk and see, I have the strength to do something else. Like I said, we do not know how long this will take. And it is important for us to realize we need to be on our feet looking for something. Don't say I tried to sell the masks and everybody's selling masks. I did a boot sale, along some road, and everybody went there and did the same thing. There must be space for me somewhere to do that little thing. And that means we need to work at this collectively. I imagine that a lot of us teachers are seated in our homes feeling, how do I help myself? How do I reach out to anybody? At the moment, I would say, thank God that there are open spaces in terms of talking to a counselor, talking to anyone who can give you support in terms of opening your eyes to see what you ought to do. But don't sit there and wonder, where can I get the next coin from? It's inside you. We just need to think creatively. Each one of us has a way of getting it. It may not amount to much, but it's a beginning. So let's find a way of getting a forum to discuss this.
Thank you. Daisy, if you can just give us the last one and we can answer it with 1 minute.
Okay, let me handle this. There are two questions, but I want them to be handled in one if it's possible. So there are some teachers who have been offering online classes through Zoom and trying to follow the same timetable that they've been using in class. It's depressing for them and stressing because they have to use a different platform and they do not feel appreciated. And the other issue is about parents who have learners who are either going to do their KCSE or their KCPE, who are at home and they don't have the opportunity to do the learning that they have been doing, but then they are stressed each day because they keep receiving examination papers that they're supposed to do on a daily basis, causing an anxiety to the learner. What should they do?
Grace, do you think you can handle that?
Thank you. This sounds like a situation where you can't eliminate, you can't reorganize, but you just have to cope. The teacher having so much to do on Zoom has to find a way of taking care of themselves, how to cope with that situation. The basic things we talked about, relaxation, taking care of your health, having to breathe, having to organize your workload so that they are not overwhelming, having a schedule of work so that this is not, you don't have to do so many things at a go. So what works for you? This is a situation where you need to find coping mechanisms. For the child who is at home and cannot access learning platforms and they have to do exams, what is the situation? I think we need to find the facts. I don't know whether the CS is sincere when he says children will begin where they left. So for me, I don't think I want to kill myself with a lot of things that are not working and children will begin learning where they left. For me, that would be it for me. That whether we are doing all this Zoom and a child cannot access, I had Magoha say Vizuri. Children will start where they left. So for me, that will be a consolation. But basically coping, because you can't eliminate, find a way of living with it by having the relaxation or the several techniques that we listed. So basically manage your stress, manage your workload, and work with facts and the reality. Work with facts and the reality. And that might ease you. I feel like chipping on the other person, the emotional baggage of not being able to provide. Find a way you can accept. This is where we are. It's a temporary situation. It will be over. Talk to those people with expectations so that they're not building them too high because you can't provide for now. Let them understand that and they might be your support system. Thank you.
Listeners, we have come to the end of the training. I now want to just take a parting shot from the panelists, a very brief one. Parting shot from Rosemary.
Teachers, you are to be celebrated. You are the helpers. Everyone looks to you. And unfortunately, sometimes we may not be so appreciated. Many times people see us as having too many hands to just hold their children and help them through. I'm sure you saw some videos that went around from the beginning where parents were actually saying they have come to appreciate teachers. But all in all, appreciation and not really seeing how the teacher struggles can be an issue. Go on. You will be rewarded. And you are strong. You are stronger than you know, and you will pull through this. You love the children, you're missing them, but you will make it through, and God will reward you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Parting shots for you, Grace.
Thank you, and thank you, teachers, for being present. We value you, treasure you. Just like my colleague said, you are the second institution that makes people who they are. After parents comes teachers. And now you almost have to be parents. You are great, but remember to look for some help for yourself so that you're not sinking with the work. We are here for you. We will support you. We care about you. Just look around and get that helping hand so that you can play your very key role in society in shaping people to becoming who they are. Thank you, and continue. God will pay you as the government pays you or employer pays you. Thank you very much, teachers.
Thank you, Grace. And to our listeners, a big thank you from all of us here. The future of the world is in your classroom. Thank you for the great minds you're shaping, going the extra mile, and for attending today's session. If you missed part of this training, please join us. We will have a session for secondary school teachers next week, Friday, same time. If we did not answer your question, we will try and see which ones we can take into the next session and probably allocate more time in the next training. To our panelists, I see great words on the screen that you've done a great job. I cannot thank you enough. I know you're doing great work here and even in your work environments. Thank you so much. To Oxford, I say to you, leaders know the way, they show the way, and they go the way. You are a leader. Thank you for doing exactly that. For all listeners, Oxford will be running a wellness program in the month of July and August. For the listeners in this segment, the primary school teachers, in 2 weeks' time, which is the week after next week, same time, Friday, we will be having a financial sensitization session. We'll be able to deal with some of the things Rosemary was trying to expound. How do you even crack that idea on what to do? Because you are so swamped, you cannot even see beyond the idea. So make sure you log in 2 weeks from now, the second Friday, so that we can be able to engage on that financial segment. From me here, what I've learned today is that it's not the load that breaks you. It's the way you carry it. And that is a word from Lou Holtz. Because the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over the other. That our minds are a garden, and that when we plant flowers, weeds will not grow. And these flowers are in line with what the grand designer of our bodies said, that think about those thoughts that are good thoughts, that are true, that are noble, that are pure. With that, listeners, we have come to the end of this segment. My motto is learn, apply, and succeed. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Please remember that if you want your certificate, you should have registered on the link, and the certificates will be dispatched to you next week. Thank you so much. And if we can just give a round of applause, if you can put your hand up to applaud the panelists so that they can receive your appreciation, that would be beautiful. Sorry, I left something out. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Daisy. I think we will send these out as we send the certificates. The contacts For our college, for the counselors who are here with us today, Miss Grace Mwangi, we have her cell number here. She's ready to listen to you. She's ready to help you overcome whatever you're going through. We have Rosemary Rariera. If you page down, her cell number is there. And then, so we will send this to you as we send the certificates, because I know a number of you had to transition at 11:30. Number two is that we also have PSP. If you can page the next page, we have PSP that is run by Binet Insurance. They are offering telecounseling, and you have their toll number there. If you're not able to get through on the toll number, you can be able to get through to Peter on the number that has been given to you. Red Cross also is saying, if you're worried, if you want to talk to somebody, if you need counseling, you can reach them on 1199. We'll send this information to you, and it will also be available. We'll see how to add it onto the Facebook page. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. We look forward to engaging you in the next training. Stay safe.